Hello everyone and welcome to Diamonds of Craft, where I make things. My name is Sarah and I am back with a video that I have been really excited for. Since watching Hazbin Hotel not that long ago, it's safe to say that it is my new favourite thing, along with just about everybody else. And of course I had to make one of my favourite characters from the show. So I'm not going to talk for too long. I will talk about my 50k giveaway at the end of this video, so please enjoy and let's get right into it. For this project, I am using the other half of my asset doll, so the head of Hunter Huntsman and the body of Gil Weber. I think this body type will fit Alastor's character much better anyway, and I will be shrinking this head as it is far too big. As usual, I prep the head before I do anything to it by removing the paint with acetone. And his undercuts need to come off with a healthy dousing of acetone and some scraping action. Once his head was dry from its acetone bath, I drew on a rough sketch of how I wanted him to look. Especially his mouth, because that's the main event here. I wanted him to have a cartoonish quality, but not an exact match of the way he's portrayed in the show. I cut away the lips. At first, I just wanted to see if it would be okay to get rid of those completely and draw his mouth on. I also shaved his jaw down so it wouldn't be so prominent and round his face out a little bit. Then I got carried away and decided to screw it. I'll sculpt a new mouth. I cut along the lines I'd drawn since I was very happy with these. It may look fast, but I did take my time with it. Once it was all cut up, I did add on a new chin and pointier nose. I wanted him to have some of the main features Alastor has, and it gives him a great side profile. Then of course, I needed to add new teeth. I did cut off the back of his head to get inside the head, so I could give the teeth a bit of a set back look. Much easier said than done. This was a bit fiddly, so I am sorry most of it is off camera or out of focus. But I like them. They look nice and spiky. Once that was dry, I added some cheeks and a bottom lip. Because, well, he's smiling and I didn't want his cheeks to be flat, there needed to be some lift. Now that I'm finished with the inside of his head, I can stick it back on with super glue. This is where those first cheeks fell off. I wanted to just see if they'd blend nicely, and I guess they were too thin or something because they just came right off. Yikers. It's alright though, because the second attempt was much better. I then primed the whole thing to get it ready for more paint. His neck did chip, but I fixed that later. Plus, it won't be seen much later anyway. To be honest, he's going to be covered up completely, so I didn't need to paint his body at all. However, it was a chance to test the skin tone I wanted to give him. He's a bit of a greyish brown colour, so I just mixed up what I thought was right. He did get quite a few coats until I got the colour I was most pleased with in the end. But as long as his face is spot on, I'm happy. By spot on, I mean it just needed a couple of extra undertones, and to get that lovely yellow shade on his teeth. Now on to redrawing the face. Apologies if you can hear purring, I have a cat friend joining me for this voiceover. This is actually the first time I'm drawing a doll with eyes looking off to one side. Again, I do want to retain a cartoonish kind of style, but a little more on the side that would fit this face in particular. If I were to sculpt Alastor from scratch, I would do my best to replicate his design to the letter. But we're adapting here, so his face needs to follow suit. He is all sorts of shades of red, which is something I also haven't done, so it's a whole video of firsts. I took a mix of reds, light and darker, and black to get that heavy eyelid shade. It was a lot like how I do my makeup on myself sometimes. And I do love adding in the black lines around the eyes. Sometimes black is too dark, but in this case, we need it. For his mouth, I figured it would just work better to have the inside that aren't teeth black. Make the mouth pop a little. It took a lot of back and forth to make him look just how I wanted. Making a 2D character into a 3D character can be a little challenging. Knowing where the shadow should be or what other colours to add can be a bit difficult sometimes, but I am pretty happy with how this has all turned out. I gave him some dark shadows below his eyes. He is a demon after all, and what demon doesn't have dark shadows everywhere? I was trying to be careful adding the black between the teeth. It was certainly a lot more challenging than I envisioned. I did end up doing a wash to get the darker colours to sit in the recesses of the teeth, which is obviously a lot easier. I did do his eyes a few times to try and get the irises to stand out. I'd have loved to have done his radio dial eyes, but maybe if I make him in his demon form in the future, I could do that. Since there is a lot of red and darkness, I added a fair amount of white highlights to his eyelids, nose, top of his mouth, chin and cheeks. Adding his pupils gave me life. It was so creepy to have him side-eye me occasionally. Excellent. And I figured I'd add in some wrinkles too, above and in between his eyebrows. The final touch is a few light reflections, and I'm calling his face done. His hair is going to be red on top and black underneath, so I painted his head to make sure no other colours would come through. Gil's hands are fabulous. I'd have loved to have used them for the assets hands, but they didn't fit in Hunter's arm sockets and vice versa, which means I need to cut this webbing off in between the fingers. I painted them black, and I'm going to add some claws with Milliput. Once they were dry, it was time to paint those red. I coated them with a couple of layers of varnish to make sure they don't chip. They are a high traffic area, so they need to be protected. Now for his clothes. Unlike other dolls I've made, there is no need for his clothes to ever come off. He won't need to change them, so I'm going to do some doll clothes trickery. That just means I won't be giving him shirt sleeves because they're just going to get in the way. I am also going to sew him into these clothes, so there's no need for closures. It also means I can really fit them to his body, which should give me a really awesome silhouette. I am going to use black ribbon for the cross detail on the front of his shirt. I used the BTS doll's pants pattern to make the correct shape and pinned it to the doll to figure out how much to shave off the sides. This is almost like making stockings. I added the red trim before I sewed them together and they're done. Sometimes it's great to make clothes that are removable, but I just don't see the point when this character won't ever need to wear anything else. His shoes needed to be made from scratch, and I honestly do hate making shoes. Like, ones that fit and can come off and all that. These can come off if I really wanted them to, but to save myself a headache, I cut out all the pieces I needed, glued the soles and the heels together, which are just cut out of cardboard. Then I glued the toe part onto the secondary sole part made from Warbler, but I mean, you could use whatever you like. I measured it to make sure it is in the right place, and once it was glued, I painted that part red. Then I have the rest of the shoe in 2 more pieces, no sewing necessary, all glued with UHU and a Dream. After the back is glued on, it was time to cover all the seams with some sturdy black leather cord. The next step, no pun intended, is to paint his little hoof marks onto the sole. I know no one will really see this, but it is a nice little detail to add. For his microphone cover, I took a small piece of warbler and heated it around this large dotting tool. To make the actual mic, I rolled some cosclay into a bullet shape around the rod I'm using as the handle. I just have to check the size is correct before I can bake it and paint it. The mic got a little mesh around the top to make it look more like a mic, plus a little eye in the middle. Then, of course, the outside is red, and I painted some nail UV resin over it to make it shiny. I feel like it would be shiny. Next up were his little antlers, once again cosclay on pins so I could stick them into his head easily. I didn't film much of his monocle, but I did make that too. I wondered how to do his ears for a long time, and in the end I chose to cut the shape out of sturdy faux leather and stick the yarn over it. I started with the black base and added red over the top, cutting it to the right shape and smoothing it all down with hairspray and other holding gels. I made sure to check the size was alright, and then I made the second one. I did add little tendrils of very stiff yarn to make the tufts that stick out, and then they're done. His final item of clothing, and probably the most important, his coat. I made a couple of coats before I committed to make sure the pattern was right. In the end, the fabric I was using for his lapels was a tad too thick to make it in the way that I'd practiced. At this point, I wasn't sure if it would work, but I saw it through and added the white trim just in case it started to look better. Spoiler, it didn't, so I ended up remaking the whole thing, and I'm glad I did because this worked out a whole lot better. I made the lapels lay flatter and the front needed a trim. I was going to have a wire in the back to keep the jacket defying gravity, but it sat a bit weird, so I scrapped that idea. Finally, the one thing I have avoided this whole project, his hair. I did already add a black undercut off camera, and I wanted to add the long black part separately. I know the tips of his hair look dipped in black, and it may have been a shout just to colour the ends of the red, but I have seen some cosplayers make wigs this way, and honestly I've tried it before with good results. I have to make sure this cut is the right angle and completely straight, so there was a lot of cutting off camera. The red part on top had to blend nicely into the black underneath, but a little point cutting had that looking pretty nice. I could then try the ears on into the holes I cut into his head for them to slot right into and make sure everything was looking nice. Once those sides were done, it was on to the dreaded middle. Alastor's hair sweeps from side to side in the animation, and his side profile has it sticking out to the front. So I know a side fringe is popular, but I think it sticks out in kind of a flick. Anyway, that's what I'm doing, even if that's not the case. Once the middle bit is all filled up, I scurried off camera to cut and style it because it was stressful enough. However, I think it's turned out so cute. Like, his side profile looks so sick. I'm so happy. I can now finally glue his monocle in place. I bet you thought I was going to forget about his pinstripes. No, I left this detail until the very end for no particular reason really, but I attached those on with fabric glue and heat, and it actually keeps the shape of the coat really well. I cut some notches in the bottom of his coat to finish it off. The very last thing for his clothes are his collar and bow tie. I sewed that colour together in the front and stuck the bow tie right on, and that's him done. But I'm not finished yet. No, he needs some more stuff. I am making him some chains and a radio. I drew the radio to the size I wanted it to be, slightly bigger than it should be, and you'll see why in a moment. I bought these thin sheets of wood to actually build a little radio. Then I traced the shape onto some baking paper, as I don't have any tracing paper. It's wonky, I won't lie, but this is my first time using this material, and I'm not so great with being precise when it comes to making little things. Plus, it works out pretty well anyway, so no worries. I then just rub the marking onto the wood and voila, I have a template now. As you can see, this is why I needed to make the radio a little bigger than necessary. The top plate is so flimsy, one wrong cut had it falling apart, so I have to be careful, and I think if it was any smaller, it just wouldn't have worked at all. Once I cut all of those pieces out, I super glued the whole thing together. Then it was time to paint the parts that are going underneath the top plate. So the mouth part and the speaker part. I added more mesh to the back of the speakers for a little extra detail. And I should have painted it before I did this, but I was in a hurry. It worked out anyway. I just need to draw on the rest of the detail and add the little dials. And then we are done. And here he is, all finished. I really love how he turned out. Honestly, I know I say that a lot, but he is probably one of my favorites that I've done so far. He was really difficult to make. I really wanted the silhouette to be right. I wanted his hair to be right. Everything about him that makes him Alastor, I really wanted to nail. And I hope that I did, to be honest, because I really love him. Let me know what you think of him down in the comments below. Remember, don't be a dick. Nobody messes with the radio demon. If you want to get involved with my 50k giveaway, I have put all the rules on my community page on YouTube. Quick rundown. You need to be a subscriber. You need to be over the age of 18. You need to put for the 50k giveaway in your comment. And then you need to tell me what you would like me to make. I need you to put that comment on a long form video of mine that's your favorite, and then I can include you in the giveaway. If you comment on a short, it won't be included. If you comment on the community post, it won't be included. So go to your favorite video of mine and comment it there. I will see it, don't worry. I am taking part in May this year, so that will be my next video for May. By then, I should have picked a winner for the 50k giveaway, so somebody will know. It's then going to take me a little while to make that doll and video, and then once I've done that, I will be posting it to the winner. So good luck to everyone who wants to be involved, and I'll probably do another one at 100k. Like this video if you want to, subscribe if you want to, and if you're doing those things, you may as well ring my bell. So, thank you once again for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next one. Bye! You stay there. Good. No, stand. Stand like a gentleman.